Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Moses Itauma, the young British heavyweight, 11-0, just 20 years old, he's got a problem. He cannot get the rounds that he needs for the fights he will ultimately be in sooner rather than later. Right now, Itauma, 11-0, he's had less than 25 rounds in his short career, and about half of his rounds, I think it's 23 rounds in total, came in two fights against some of the more durable journeymen in the division, and this was earlier in his career. But as soon as he had those fights, they wanted to build him up, so they dropped his opposition down, and he has been on a tear recently. You know, a lot of first-round stoppages. Even managed to stop Dempsey McKean, who was meant to be a step up, in one round. And I know that there will be some people who will be saying, well, Itauma is just that good. But the thing is, Itauma, he needs the rounds, and he's acknowledged that himself. He says, skill-wise, I feel I'm the best in the world, but I need to start getting those later rounds. And with those sort of comments in mind, and he knows that, you know, he's fought Dempsey McKean, he's got to maybe stick at a certain level, and especially if he wants to go up in the heavyweight division, he needs to make good performances, put in good efforts, but also get good experience. And you have to question being added to this card on the 24th of May on the undercard of Taylor Esserman. He'll be fighting the American Mike Belligan. And Belligan was not so long ago stopped in a couple of rounds by Murat Gassiev. So Belligan 21-1. That Gassiev fight was back in 2023, like I say, stoppage loss in 2 rounds, and it looked like he didn't want to be there, and he found a spot on the canvas after Gassiev was really just applying a little bit of pressure. So an opponent as well who's 6-1, who's been relatively inactive, hasn't been in the ring for the best part of a year now, or more than a year, and this is the opposition that they're matching him up against at a time where Frank Warren is also saying, and see here on screen, I think Itauma could fight for a world title this year. Who knows? He may fight him this year. And that's speaking of Usyk. So, I mean, either Frank Warren doesn't want to address reality in terms of the matchmaking and versus what Itauma needs, or it's just a case of he is just trying to keep his name out there and people remembering who Itauma is as he makes his way in the heavyweight division. Because let's face it, when you've got a record of 11-0 and you've only fought a total of 23 rounds, and for some of those rounds he was stopping guys in half a round sort of thing, you know, it's actually less than 23 rounds cumulatively. And like I say, 12 of those rounds were against really durable journeyman Konstantin Doboshenko, who is one of the best heavyweight journeymen rolling around, and Itauma never got close to stopping him. Kevin Espindola, similarly durable, but he was quite negative in that one. Itauma since then has looked $1 million, you know, obviously stopping guys left, right and centre in 1 or 2 rounds, literally 1 or 2 rounds since then. But the thing is, you know, we've seen this before with the likes of the early Joseph Parker career, coming up and blowing guys away, but then getting to a certain level and the knockouts dried up. And let's face it, by this point in Joseph Parker's career, they were matching him with, you know, decent tests for that point in his career where he could get rounds. And Itauma needs something similar, because right now he is way underdone on what he needs. And he even obviously is admitting it himself, he needs to start getting to those later rounds. So with that in mind, why did they make the Belligan fight? Why didn't they go for something a little bit better? Because at the end of the day, Belligan, I think, is probably below the level of where Dempsey McKean was, and McKean was somewhere between top 25, top 30-ish, there or thereabouts, maybe even a little bit lower. It was between top 25 and top 35 at least. It was a decent step up in opposition, and obviously Itauma passes the test. But at a certain point, maybe they've just got to forego a little bit of the hype, get him some names that will actually take him some rounds, take him the distance. I don't think that's going to hurt his career, because Frank Warren's managing it. He can still put him into decent fights, get him in good cards, and make things happen for him. Even if there are a couple of fights that necessarily don't look $1 million in terms of a viewing spectacle. At the end of the day, he doesn't want to shortchange him on his run up to a title, because let's face it, Itauma is rising the ranks across the board. So what happens if Itauma ends up, getting to a position where a whole bunch of belts get split because, say, Usyk retires or something like that, and he's Johnny on the spot for one of them? You don't want him being short of rounds at that point. He's only 20 years old. He, didn't have an extensive amateur career. It's a case that he has not been through all sorts of situations under the bright lights. Sparring and, him facing top guys, through his teens, all that sort of stuff. That's one thing. But actually getting in there against really good opposition in circumstances he's never been in before. I mean, we really haven't even seen the chin checked properly. We don't know what he's like when he's going to go later in a fight. I mean, as it was for the Doboshenko fight, there were questions, that I had. I mean, bearing in mind it was 2 years ago, it was a little bit samey and didn't really seem to be able to, mix it up and change the game plan. But 2 years more, I mean, hopefully he's been developing, and hopefully he would be able to adjust and go to a game plan B, try something different. But that's what we need to see now. So what should we be seeing? Because if he is truly going to be in a big fight this year, if it's not Alexander Usyk, maybe he ends up fighting someone in the top 15 or there or thereabouts by the end of the year. He needs 1 or 2 fights before that to make sure that he can bridge the gap and climb the requisite steps, and especially against guys that are durable. It's all well and good, setting him up against opponents that he can bang out. And even in that McKean fight, heading into that one, there was always a question about McKean's chin. Johnny Rice had obviously hurt him in their fight a few years before. So you have a situation, Itauma really needs to fight someone durable. I mean, what springs to mind immediately is a really relevant and sort of appropriate step would be a Jermaine Franklin. But it's getting to the point where they need to put their money where their mouth is and stick it up and pay for the sort of opponents that he needs on the way up. And it is an investment in his future. I mean, there's other guys out there as well, similarly durable. Ali Erendemiresian would be a good one. But even within the stable of Frank Warren's, is it about 20 heavyweights deep right now? There are some unbeaten guys and some guys that are at a certain level that he could be facing. I mean, Vladislav Serenko is unbeaten. That would be better than Mike Belligan, in my opinion. Maybe we aren't fully aware of where Serenko is. Maybe he hasn't been fully tested, but it would be 2 unbeaten guys with a lot on the line, a lot to lose. It would still be better, in my view, in this fight, because if he goes in against Belligan and gets him out of there in 1, 2, 3 rounds, well, we've seen that before. We need to see him being pushed. We need to see him working through the gears, trying to work out to break a guy down, especially when there's resistance and shots coming back at him. And at a certain point, his power will not translate the same as it has thus far in his career. So there are names out there. Even Stephen Shaw, who's fighting on the same weekend that I'm recording this video. Plenty of names in the heavyweight division, plenty of durable, skilled guys that can take shots and deliver their own back. And Moses Itauma, seemingly, he realizes it as well, that he's short on rounds. And if you're talking big and talking he's about to be in a big fight, make sure he gets the rounds to actually make sure he's prepared for it, because usually Frank Warren's really good at this, but at the moment there's a delicate balance between riding a Moses Itauma hype train, trying to build his name to the public and actually get him the rounds and the fights that he needs to progress his career in the right way. So I think at the moment he's not ready for a title fight. He hasn't fought anyone in the top 20 at this point, so it would be a massive step, and I don't think he deserves a title shot right now, and plenty of other guys far ahead of him in the queue, in my view. Could he be ready for a title shot soon? Yeah, but he needs the fights. He needs the rounds. And because we're not doing the whole trying to beat Mike Tyson's record now because it can't happen, actually bring him on at an appropriate level. If he has 1 or 2 fights where it's not so aesthetically pleasing on the eye, it doesn't matter. People will forget, and quickly. He needs rounds, and he needs them desperately. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.